Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be making this easy farmhouse ripple throw. This is a crochet chevron pattern or ripple pattern, and you will learn everything you need to know to make a nice pretty throw blanket using this chevron technique. You can use any colors you like, but I'm using a taupe and white for a nice neutral look in my home decor. So let's go ahead and get started. I am using the 300-gram big ball Bernat blanket yarn. So this is the color taupe, and that is in the Bernat baby blanket yarn family. I'm also using a P or Q 15mm hook. This is the Clover Amour hook. I love these hooks. Be sure that you're using a 15mm here. So going ahead and getting started, this yarn is a chenille style yarn. It's very fuzzy. It works up great. It has great stitch definition and is very, very cozy and warm. So using this yarn, you're going to need 2 balls of the taupe and 2 of the white. So here is the label. So this is what you need to look for in the store. Bernat baby blanket. It's going to be with the baby yarns. I just got this from Joann's, and it's going to recommend a hook a little bit larger than the one I'm using, but I'm going to use this one because what that's going to do is create a little bit tighter of a stitch so there's not quite as much gapping between the stitches so that my blanket is a little bit more warm. Now I do also want to mention that this pattern is an oversized blanket pattern. So it is a throw blanket. It's not twin or queen size, but it is a little bit larger and big enough for 2 people. So go ahead and start with a slip knot. You're going to create a loop, place the tail behind the loop, reach through the loop and pull that tail or create a slip knot however you prefer. Insert your hook in the loop and tighten it down. Now we're going to start with a foundation chain. So go ahead and start chaining. Remember, chain stitch is yarn over and pull through. So you're going to want to start with any multiple of 17 plus 15. So total I'm doing 83 foundation chains, and I know that sounds like a lot, but you do want this blanket to be nice and wide. You can change that stitch count number if you prefer to. So here I have all 83 chains. Now I know that your chain is going to look really, really long at this point, but it's going to shrink up in width when we get that chevron going. So this is not your finished width here. So going ahead and getting started on row 1, we are going to count down our chain here. This is our first chain, second, third, and fourth. And we're going to work into that 4th chain. So work a double crochet, that's yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. So there's our first double crochet. We can see how that edge should be looking. Go ahead and double crochet in the next 5 stitches. So we have 1, there's the second one, third. If you need any help with these basic crochet stitches, please consult my crochet beginner series that's in a playlist over on my main channel page. So just double crocheting here, we have 3 so far, there's 4, we have 5, one, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now what we're going to do differently after we have our first 6 double crochet is we're going to do 3 double crochets all in the next stitch. So this is our first increase, or our first mountain, as I'm going to call it when talking about these chevron shapes. So in the next stitch we're working 3 double crochets. So there's 1, we're working the second in the same stitch, 2, we can see 2 there, and then still in the same little spot, a 3rd double crochet. You may be worried about this stretching the stitch, but I promise it'll be fine and all work out in the end. You won't see that little hole or gap when everything gets going. So now at this point we have our mountain, our increase, so now we're going to work down the other side of what will become our chevron shape, and we're going to double crochet all the way down until we get to our valley or our skipped stitches. So here is 3, 4, make sure that your chain is not getting twisted here. You're still working on the same top loops of your chain. So here we have our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we need 7 double crochet. So here we can see how it's starting to take shape. We have our mountain, we have those 3 at the top, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 double crochet coming back down the other side of the mountain. Now we are come to our valley. So when I say valley, this is where we're going to kind of pause at the bottom and then start sloping back up. So what we're going to do here is we're going to skip 2 stitches. So there's 1 and 2, and in the 3rd stitch we're just going to work a double crochet. So we've skipped 2, and what that's going to do is create our bottom piece of the chevron. Because when we do skip those 2 stitches and then we double crochet, it's going to bring those stitches together, the tops of the 2 double crochets, and those skip stitches will kind of create our little valley or bottom peak of the chevron shape. So now that we've done our valley, we need 7 double crochets back up the other side. And you're just going to keep repeating this. So you want 7 double crochets on either side of your mountains and your valleys. So now we're working back up the next side of the next mountain. We can see how the skip stitches are shaping up. And then once we have 7 double crochet, we need to work 3 double crochet in the next stitch. So here we have our 7. We can see how the chevron is starting to take shape. We have our mountain with a 3. We have our valley skipping 2 stitches. We've worked back up the next side, and now we're ready for our next mountain, and so on and so forth. So it's just going to keep coming mountain, valley, with 7 double crochets in between each one. So we've come to our mountain space. So we're going to work 3 double crochets into that spot. And you're just going to repeat this all the way across your entire foundation chain here. And then when you get to the very end, we can see here there's that mountain. So we have our next peak, mountain, valley, mountain. And then we're going to work 7 double crochets back down the other side and then get to our next valley. So just continue with this across for the rest of your foundation chain in the same manner. And when you get to the end, you'll just have 6 double crochets there at the end. Just as in the beginning of this row, we started with 6 double crochets. So go ahead and finish that up, mountain, valley, all the way across. So when we get to the end of the row, you should just have a long string of double crochets like this, and it's probably not looking like anything like a chevron blanket yet, but that's totally fine. It will take shape in the next few rows. So here I've gotten to the end, I've double crocheted to the very end here. We ended with 6 double crochets on the other side of that mountain. We're going to chain up 2 and we're going to turn our work. So chain 2 and turn. And now we're going to do something slightly different. So we're going to do a modified double crochet decrease. So what that means is we're going to bring these first 2 stitches together. So what we're going to do is yarn over, insert your hook in the first stitch, pull up a loop, and then go ahead and insert your hook in the next stitch, pull up a loop. We have 4 loops on our hook, and we're going to just yarn over and pull through all 4. If you need to watch that again, please pause and rewind so that you can get the hang of that modified double crochet decrease. So what that's done is brought our edge in slightly so that as we progress with all of our rows, we don't end up with a trapezoid style blanket. We want everything to be nice and rectangular. So now just carry on as normal. You're going to double crochet in each of the next 5 stitches, because remember on each end here we want 6 stitches to work off of on either side of our blanket. So because we did our first decrease, that counts as 1, and then we need 5 more before we get to our mountain. And the way that you can tell this, you can count it. That's definitely the safest way to make sure that you're stitching the right thing in the right spot. But moving on from here, you can look at the row below to guide you on where to place what stitches. So we've gotten up here to the mountain. You can see these 3 stitches that were in the same stitch from the row below, and what we're going to do is we're going to work our next mountain in the center stitch. So we can see here there's our cluster of 3, our mountain. We're going to work the next mountain in row 2 into that very center stitch. So you can look at the row below to guide you and look for that center stitch of the mountain from the row below, or you can count 5 double crochets up and then your mountain, and then for the rest of the row until you get to the very end, you'll be doing 7 double crochets in between mountains and valleys, just as we did with row 1. So we can see here how the edge is looking. Everything is looking nice and symmetrical. It's following suit. So we're just going to keep continuing, and at this point it is just completely easy, smooth sailing. You're going to double crochet in each of the next 7 stitches before we will reach our valley. You're going to skip 2, work 7 more double crochet, and mountain, just as we did with row 1. And row 2 is as hard as it gets. So when you've mastered row 2, you're just repeating row 2 until your blanket is done. So if you need to rewind this video to the beginning of row 2, go ahead and skip back, or if you need to watch it several times when you begin each row, again, totally fine. Pause and rewind as needed. So here I'm working down. I've skipped my 2 stitches as my valley, and we'll take a look at that here. I'm sorry, I'm about to skip my 2 stitches. So you can see here where the valley was from row 1. You can see where that bottom point is, our mountain and our valley. So now we've come to that point, we've worked our 7 double crochets down the side of the mountain, and now we're ready to valley. So we see which 2 stitches we're skipping. Here are these 2 right here. And then we're going to double crochet in the 3rd. So your valleys should always line up vertically, and your mountains should always line up vertically. And if at any point throughout your blanket things are going diagonally or things aren't lining up symmetrically, you know that your stitch count is a little bit off, or you are looking at the pattern a little bit off. So make sure that everything is lining up nice and vertically. So now we can see that we've done that next double crochet and our valley is lining up. So everything's going according to plan. We're going to work our 7 double crochets here before our next mountain. And we're just going to repeat this all the way across. When you get to the very end of row 2, you're going to work a decrease in those last 2 stitches, but other than that, it is exactly the same, and at this point, you're probably getting the hang of things, and it's just smooth sailing from here on out. So what you're going to do is just repeat row 2 with those decreases at either end of the row, and you're just going to work your 7 double crochets between each mountain and valley. And that's all there is to the chevron ripple stitch. So this stitch works great for all different kinds of projects. This throw is definitely my favorite though. It's nice and warm and so easy to work up. This is a great couch project and is just so easy to kind of crochet along, and once you do the first few rows you really get the hang of it and it gets much easier. So I'm sure that you're remembering that white yarn that I'm going to stripe this with. So you can see here that it's starting to take shape a little bit better. So just go ahead and keep repeating this. Now as far as the color changes, here is my finished blanket, and what I've done is I've done 4 rows of taupe and 4 of white, and I always do 4 rows of taupe. Now I threw in a skinnier stripe of white right in the middle, so I did 4 taupe, 4 white, 4 taupe, 2 white, and then 4 taupe, 2 white again. So I repeated that whole process a couple of times. You can keep repeating this until your blanket is the length that you like. If you'd like to see the written pattern, the link is in the description box below, and you can see exactly how many rows of each color I did and all of that detailed information. So just go ahead and keep working up your rows, take your time, watch a show on Netflix, and just kind of crank this thing out. And your blanket is almost done. I'm going to show you just in a minute how to put a border on your chevron blanket. So here I have my finished blanket. And you can see here that the chevron ripple shape has worked up beautifully. All of my valleys here, those skip stitches, have lined up great. And all of my mountains have lined up great too. Now for the color changes, once again, I have done 2 rows of white there in the center, but everything else has been 4 rows. So basically I did 4, 4, 4, 2, 4, 4, 4, 2, 4, 4. And again, you can check the link in the description box below for all of the details on changing color. Fairly straightforward, just change the color at the end of the row and just follow this chevron ripple shape as you practiced in row 2. So now I have my blanket mostly done. I have those color changes on the edge, and I'm going to cover those up with a little border. Now you can skip this part and you can just weave the ends from your stripes and be done and not add a border if you don't want to. I think adding a border just adds a nice kind of finishing touch, but it's totally up to you. So you can see here where I changed color and I carried up the yarn on one edge. So if you change color in even rows, even numbers of rows, you can carry your yarn like this and you don't have as many ends to weave in, but we do need to cover this with a border because we have these kind of strings from carrying up the yarn. So what I'm going to do is crochet a border. So wherever I left off with my last row of white, I just didn't break that yarn. I finished off my last couple rows of taupe and I left that ball of white attached to the blanket. So that's that string that you see here in front of the blanket. So what I did is I just finished off the taupe when I got to the length I wanted on my blanket, finished off that yarn, weaved in that end, and now I'm going to pick up this white yarn with my 15mm hook and I'm going to use that to crochet my border around. Because my blanket was primarily taupe, I still have a bit of a ball of white left, and it should be the perfect amount to do this border. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our 15mm hook and we're just going to double crochet all the way around the edge of this blanket. So what I'm going to do is I have this end that's attached to my ball of yarn. Here's the edge of my blanket. So this was the last row of white I worked. I'm going to insert my hook in that stitch and I'm just going to yarn over and pull up. So now I have that working yarn and I'm going to chain up 2. And I'm just going to double crochet in each stitch. So I pulled up the yarn and I've chained, and now I'm going to just double crochet in each stitch all the way around. So when you're working on the raw edges or the rough edges here where you don't have stitches to work into, you're just going to work a stitch or 2 for every row of yarn that you have. So every row of stitches, here's 1 row, 2 rows, we're going to work in the ends of those rows. And try to get it as even as you can. I wound up working 1 or 2 double crochets into the edge of each row, just kind of depending on how it was lying, to get it to be a nice flat border. If you don't do enough stitches, it will kind of gather and pucker things, but if you do too many stitches, it will create kind of a ruffle. So here I've gotten to the corner, and in the corner of the blanket, so all 4 corners, you're going to work 3 double crochets in those spots. So here, before I turn that corner and work along the other edge of the blanket, I'm going to work 3 double crochets into that corner, and that's just going to give me a nice square edge. So there's 2 and 3 in that corner, and then now I'm going to be working along the chevron shape along that last row of stitches, and we're just going to double crochet in each across, and just go ahead and finish this all the way around, and then we'll just finish off that yarn and weave in our ends. So here is our finished blanket, our finished farmhouse chevron throw. I hope you all enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure to thumbs up below if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already for lots of fun, crafty crochet tutorials. Make sure to comment below with any questions you have, and click the link in the description for the written pattern. Thanks so much for watching!